My name is Michael Poston. Most people call me Mike. I probably got that from my mother. Growing up, she played lots and lots of popular music, and so it helped stimulate my interest in music. I was about 8 years old or so when I started piano lessons, and I continued piano lessons then until I was, 15 or 16. We had a pretty nice hi-fi back then. It was this Telefunken hi-fi that really sounded good. So I would sit and listen to records about 6 feet in front of this hi-fi for hours on end. And what I was listening for were mistakes. She had quite a few Chet Atkins records. They were the only records that I listened to that I couldn't find mistakes. I'm interested in technical things growing up, through my teen years and things like that. And so I really wanted to learn a little more about electronics. I tried a year at Belmont. It was a liberal arts college back then, and not a whole lot of stuff that I wanted to learn. A friend of mine had just gotten back from Navy boot camp, and he says, well, you should try the Navy because they'll send you to school. So that's what I did. I passed a test, an ASVAB test for advanced electronics training, and I signed my name on the line for 6 years. That allowed me to go to school, technical school, all these electronic schools for 2 years, and then go aboard ship and start, practicing. All the while I'm in the service, I'm playing in a couple of bands and keeping my musical chops up. And then when I got out of the service, I was having a little trouble finding a gig simply because I was a little radical back in 1973 in that I had this beard. IBM wanted to hire me to work on their AS400 systems around Middle Tennessee as soon as I shaved. GE Medical Systems wanted me to work for them doing work on all the x-ray equipment here in Middle Tennessee as soon as I shaved. I was radical enough that I wasn't going to shave. So I answered an ad in the paper of a company that wanted somebody with military electronics training. As it turned out, that was Studio Supply Company that Dave Harrison owned. I went in, answered the ad. Within 15 minutes, I was hired. Met Dave, Claude Hill at the time, and Tom Piper, who was the service manager. I spent about 6 weeks learning about consoles and tape machines before I hit the road. I worked with Studio Supply Company about 3 years. At the same time, doing maintenance on various studios around the country and here in town. I started gaining an interest in the recording aspect. I left Studio Supply Company and took a job as chief engineer at what was then called the Jack Clement Recording Studios, is now Sound Emporium. And so now I was working in a studio 24/7, even though I was head of maintenance. It was Jim Williamson's policy at the time that everybody participated in live sessions that happened at Sound Emporium. I wound up assisting on hundreds and hundreds of sessions and start really gaining an interest there at what was going on, learning from the likes of Jim Williamson, Garth Fundus, and Billy Sherrill. After about 3 years, I think it was about three to 4 years there, is when I decided that I wanted to start doing sessions and back off from the technical side. I went over to a place called Ironside Recording. A guy named Bob Millsap hired me over there as the main engineer. And I hit the ground running engineering, and within a year of working on staff there at Ironside, it was sold and became the Waxworks. So I wound up doing a lot of my work there, even as a freelance, working for both Bob and Gary Paxton. Hundreds and hundreds of sessions with Gary Paxton. He taught me a lot. It was there at Waxworks where I'd been doing a lot of demos with Bob Millsap, and Randy Goodrum was the piano player, in-house piano player, and Bob Millsap had Randy's publishing, so we were doing all of Randy's demos there. Well, at the time, Randy Goodrum was on the road with Chet Atkins and knew Chet quite well, and Chet was going to make a transition from RCA to CBS and was looking for someone to be his engineer. And Randy suggested me. The very first project I did with Chet was with Perry Como, an album of songs that Randy had written. And Chet and I hit it off very, very good. And I worked nearly 20 years with him. He and Leona, his wife, really became my second parents. I was working for a while with Roy Clark, and so he flew me out to Reno once to do an album out there, so I spent a couple of weeks out there. One of the pieces on that album actually got us a Grammy for Instrumentalist of the Year. I wound up getting 6 with Chet. Going back to when I was working for a studio supply company, being around on some big sessions, one in particular was down in New Orleans at a studio called Sea Saint that was owned by Alan Toussaint, or Toussaint. They called me to come down to stay there for about 4 days and kind of babysit the equipment to make sure everything is working because they had a high-profile artist coming in. As it turns out, it's LaBelle, Patti LaBelle. I was there working with Ken Laxton, the engineer at the time there. Made sure all the console of the machine was up and running just fine. And we started getting sounds and everything was working along very good until late afternoon. Alan came in and I watched Alan go around for 2 hours showing musicians what he wanted played on this particular song. New Orleans rhythm section was there. And we sat there and cut Lady Marmalade. All the vocals were live on the session, no overdub vocals. They were standing in the middle of the room singing. The only overdub that happened on that record were the next day we did horns. Well, I teach at Belmont. And an important aspect of teaching there is finding out and talking with students is why do they want to be engineers? Saying, I want to be an engineer because I love music is the wrong reason. You want to be an engineer because you love audio. And to me, that's what the AES is a bunch of audio lovers, passionate about their craft and what they do. All of us in the AES and all of us that truly love what we do it because we love listening. Listening is important. These 2 ears that we have that we use as our tools are gifts. I think it's up to us to train them and use them. Take the earbuds out, turn them down, listen on speakers. I'll say to my students and tell them, for once, at least one time, don't listen to the music. Listen to the sound. Listen to frequencies. Listen to how they mesh together. And then, when you're done making adjustments, go back and play it again and now listen to the music. You take your consumer hat off, you put your pro hat on. Listen to the sound, but at the end of the day, always listen to the music. Hi, I'm Mike Poston, and I'm a proud member of the AES Nashville section.